everyone, it's Sunny and welcome to the Well-Read Society. So before we get started, I really wanted to wish everyone a very happy new year. I hope that 2021 is a better year for you than the chaotic 2020, and I am wishing you a lot of happiness, success, good health, money, and books, because those are important too. Speaking of books and success, let's talk about my book goals for the new year. So I don't know if you set any book goals, any reading goals. If you do, please let me know in the comments, but I have a few. I have 5 to be specific, and I wanted to share them with you. So let's get into it. So my first goal is to read 50 books this year. So in 2020, I read 35 something books. And while it's a good number and there's no right or wrong amount of books to read in a year, I think it could be really beneficial for me to read more books in a lot of ways. First of all, it would force me to spend less time on my phone or on social media watching Netflix and more time actually reading, which is something I would like to do more but don't do enough because I get distracted by the internet. Also, it's a really good way to get more educated. I always want to learn more, and specifically with non-fiction books, I want to learn and read about things that I don't know, and reading 50 books could help me get there. Could also turn me into a better writer and expand my curiosity and imagination and better my vocabulary and expression, especially when I read in English because it's not my first language. So the more I read in English, the better my English becomes. And I think it's a very realistic goal even for a slow reader like me, because there are 52 weeks in a year, and if I read 50 books, that gives me a little bit over a week per book. And if I read a little bit every day, for example, if I read 50 pages 7 days a week, we come up to a total of 350 pages, which is the average size of a novel, of a book. So I think it's 100% doable, and especially because I do read audiobooks as well, and I tend to read them on doubled up speed because I like it when the narrator talks fast. So it's totally possible and doable for me to read 50 books this year, and I am hoping that I will manage to do so. This brings me to my second goal, which is to read more physical copies of books than I did the previous year. So in 2020, I read mostly audiobooks and ebooks on my Kindle. And while there is nothing wrong with that, and those are totally valid formats of books, I think there could be a lot of benefits for me that I could reap from reading for actual physical paperback book copies. First of all, I have a quite short attention span, so when I listen to audiobooks, I can sometimes get distracted by something else and not really listen to it anymore. It just kind of fades into the background, and then I'm not really focused on the book. Second of all, I also really like highlighting, underlining, bookmarking, annotating books that I read, especially non-fiction books or anything that's kind of educational and that I can get information out of. And while that is possible with ebooks and audiobooks, you kind of have to dig through the notes and scroll there, and I think it's much easier to just have the physical copy and having the visual layout in front of you. And also, I have bought so many books last year, and they are collecting dust on my bookshelves while I keep on buying audiobooks and ebooks. So I think it would make sense for me to read the books that I bought before I go download a new book. So yeah, those are my reasons for wanting to read more physical copies this year. My next goal is to read more fiction and feel-good books and novels. So the main reason for that is that the past year I've read a whole lot of memoirs, essays, studies, just in general fiction and non-fiction about a lot of difficult subjects such as misogyny, racism, homophobia, and just a whole lot of traumatic experiences. And while I think it's so important to listen to the voices of marginalized people and to keep on educating yourself and keep on being compassionate, it can be really exhausting to read so much about trauma and violence, especially when you have to deal with trauma and difficulties of your own, and it can take a toll on your mental health. So basically, my goal is not to stop reading about this altogether. I will probably never stop reading about this and educating myself on this, especially if I want to be a good activist in the future. But I want to find a good balance between reading those kind of books for educational and research purposes and reading just fluffy, feel-good fiction books for my own pleasure without having to be reminded of the terrible state of the world and humanity every single second of the day. My next goal is to read the books that are already on my bookshelf before purchasing more, because I have this terrible habit that I think a lot of bookworms can relate to, of just keep on buying books and buying books and buying books, and then you don't read the books you bought, you just end up reading something else, and there's just this big pile of unread books collecting dust on your bookshelves. And I need to stop doing this for my well-being, for the well-being of my bank account, and for the well-being of my shelves that are not so solid anymore because there's so many things on it. So yeah, it just makes sense for me to have a TBR of the books that I already own instead of keep on adding books on my TBR that I don't even own and keep on buying books when I have like 50, I'm lying. I have way over 50 unread books on my bookshelf. So I'm definitely not gonna wait until I've read all of my TBR before purchasing new books, but I still want to have read a good amount of it before I buy anything new. And my fifth and last reading goal for 2021 is to read more books in French and by foreign authors. So there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, ever since I started reading in English and became fluent in English, I totally abandoned French literature, and now here I am in a country where we have so many great writers, and I have read very few of them, and I would just like to know more about the literature of my country, be it classic French literature or modern French literature. I just think it would be good for me to read more by authors from where I live. And also, I used to have such amazing grammar and vocabulary skills in French. I literally never had a bad grade in a French class. Now I'm struggling because since I started filming videos on YouTube in English and reading in English and talking to my friends online in English and some of my friends in real life in English, and just basically living and consuming English language content only, my French became worse and worse, and now I'm struggling to find some words in my first language, and the English word comes to me first, and sometimes I'll also make terrible grammar mistakes that I've never done before. And when I look at it, the only difference between then and now is that I just stopped reading in French as much as I used to. So yeah, I want to discover the great French writers, and I want to improve my skills by reading more books in French. So that is why I want to read more French books this year. And speaking of reading more French books, I also want to read more foreign literature. And by foreign, I just mean literature that was not originally written in English or by a British or American author, because a lot of my reads are very US and UK centric, and there's so much good literature out there from a whole bunch of different countries. So this year I want to read Japanese literature, Korean literature, Chinese literature, Russian literature, Scandinavian literature. I don't know, I just want to read books from a whole bunch of different countries, because I think every country has many great authors and so much to offer, and I think it's really sad to limit oneself to only books by American or British or just English language authors. So yeah, translations don't always quite hit the same, but I think it's worth it if it means that I can read a book by an African or a Russian or an Asian author. So I really want to do that this year. So I think it's time to wrap up this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening to me, and don't forget to share your reading goals in the comments because I'm so curious to know. And also, if you do have a Goodreads challenge, please let me know what the number is because I want to know. And by the way, if you want to follow me on Goodreads, I'll link it in the description and maybe somewhere around here. Thank you so much for watching. You can subscribe, you can like this video, you can share it with your friends and your mama. And Sumaya, the other host on this YouTube channel, will see you next week with a new video, and I will see you the week after that. We also have a diversity-focused book community, which is also by monthly book club over our Instagram, which you can go check out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this, and Happy New Year and happy reading!